Hi there, my name is Gladys Villalpando, and I'm a Student Success Advisor for SupportNet at Fresno State. Thanks for joining me today during this Academic Success Workshop. Today's topic is going to be on exam game plan. I hope that by the end of this Academic Success Workshop, you feel more confident about how to prepare and going into your test to ace it. Today's agenda will include how to prepare effectively for exams. We're going to review some testing strategies, some study strategies. We're going to look at different learning styles. We're going to also look at study resources. I'm going to allow you to create your exam game plan. And then we're going to talk about a few tips on how to manage test anxiety. All right, first we're going to go over this toolkit. It's called Don't Get Trapped, 10 Traps of Studying. But while I go through this, I want you to really start thinking which one resonates with you, or which is a trap that you know you've fallen into before and that you really would like to avoid falling into this time. Number one, I don't know where to begin. This is a common trap, and you can counteract it by starting a list of all of the things that you have to do to prepare for your exam, and then you start prioritizing that list. So that way, the highest priority, the first thing on your list, will be your starting point. Trap number two, I have so much to study and so little time. In reality, we want to avoid getting to this point where you feel like you're just rushing and that you're cramming everything in. So you can start by surveying all of your textbooks, notes, syllabus, so that you really are prepared ahead of time to know exactly the exam date, exactly what content is going to be on your exam, and you can start preparing this in advance. Trap number three, this stuff is so boring, I can't even stay awake reading it. You can avoid falling into this trap by trying strategies that can get you engaged with the material. For example, if you're reading something that doesn't catch your attention much, then start highlighting, start annotating, or rephrasing things in your own words so that you can engage with it and connect with the material somehow. Trap number four, I read it, I understand it, I just can't remember it. So one of the best solutions for this is to try to think of ways that you can connect material that you're reading for the first time and connect it to something that you've already read or that you've already learned. So you want to create those connections between things, and that way it really helps the chances of memorizing and processing the information for long periods of time. Trap number five, there's just too much to remember. Well, this happens quite often when we have an exam that has a lot of content, and in reality, you want to make sure that you create a structure for yourself. And the structure can look something like categorizing by chapters or categorizing by theories or by equations. And then once you start kind of creating your framework for you, then you can take one thing at a time. Trap number six, I knew it a minute ago. So you really want to gauge as you are reading or studying, you want to check for understanding, which means that when you read a certain section, you want to make sure you pause and then write a few notes, or maybe in your own words, write some comments or examples so that you make sure you're not continuing reading without fully understanding what you just read. Trap number seven, but I like to study in bed. And although this sounds really tempting, it's really important to try to study in a space that's going to be familiar and it's going to be the same as the space that you're going to be taking your exam in. For example, if you're going to take this exam in a classroom, then the best way to start studying and prepare mentally for it is to actually study on a desk. Trap number eight, Cramming before a test keeps it fresh in my mind. All right, this calls for procrastination. And although this may have worked in the past, this is a recipe for short-term memory, which means that you won't remember information for a long time. This can also get you very tired or it actually cause more anxiety going into your exam and then cause you to blank out during an exam. So you want to make sure that you're using chunking instead of cramming, which means you start studying by sections in like a week or 2 weeks before the actual exam date. Trap number 9. I'm going to stay up all night till I get this. This can really lead to mental exhaustion. You don't want to put that pressure on yourself. Take short breaks throughout your study sessions and make sure that you get a good night rest so that you're energized for that exam. And there's another trap that is not on here, and really it's just a tip that I have now that we've transitioned to virtual instruction. I really suggest to maybe not rely so heavily on having your notes in front of you while you're taking an exam, because sometimes students can run out of time because they heavily rely on the notes and they waste a lot of time searching for the information. So instead, I suggest that you do have your notes, but you also take the time to study and prepare for those online exams ahead of time. All right, we're moving on to how to actually prepare effectively for exams. So the first things first, determine what kind of a test it'll be. Will it be essay? Will it be a multiple choice exam? Will it be true or false? Fill in the blanks? Or is it going to be a combination of 2 of these? You also want to make sure you gather the test material needed, which means Scantrons, blue books, pencils or pens, and then if any other type of material is needed, for example, a calculator. And number 3, with reading, we encourage you to start reading what's required for your exam and start thinking about what is the important things that we're actually going to be, that I'm actually going to be tested on. And now that you know what you're going to be tested on, think about what's the material that I know very well and what's the material that I need to catch up on or go back to. So we're going to jump into a few testing strategies. For multiple choice, number 1 would be look for answers that are grammatically correct. So you really want to eliminate those that just don't make sense grammatically. Strategy number 2, eliminate silly or suspicious questions. Sometimes you get a question that it's kind of outrageous, so and it makes you laugh a bit. Those are probably there to distract. You want to eliminate those. Strategy number 3, responses that look or sound like the words to be defined are usually incorrect. For example, if the question is define illusion, then if you have answers that are an illusion is an illusion, or an illusion is the same as elusive, so you can really tell that they sound very similar, which means they're probably incorrect. Strategy number 4, watch for responses that are essentially the same. Sometimes the question can be found within the answer, which means what I'm trying to say is that sometimes there's an answer that is just the same thing as the question, but just phrased differently. You want to eliminate those as well. All right, we're moving on to true-false test tactics. Strategy number 1, every part of a sentence or prompt must be true. This is right. If there's a statement and there's 3 parts to a statement and 2 of those parts are correct, but the last one isn't, then it makes the whole statement false. Strategy number 2, understand how to approach tricky negatives. So this one's a little tricky. So we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna switch to the whiteboard to give you an example. Okay, so let's say the phrase is, aspirin is not an illegal drug. Is this true or false? Well, you know, as I'm listening to it, it's a little tricky because there's a not in there, and then illegal actually means not legal. So what you want to do is you want to cancel those two out. Those are tricky negatives. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel this and then make this, rephrase it to not legal. I apologize for my writing. Because those two cancel each other out. There's two nots, and that's just very confusing. Now that we've canceled those out, we can rephrase it. Aspirin is an illegal drug. So this would be correct. It's not confusing anymore, as we know that aspirin is a legal drug. Strategy number 3, attack qualifiers accordingly. So qualifiers are words such as sometimes, or let's see, often, frequently, generally, ordinarily. So these words, you know, these words have some room to be false. So it implies that it's true, but there's some wiggle room there. So you really want to attack these accordingly. If there's a phrase that, let's say the question is, children sometimes have emotional problems following their parents' divorce, the qualifier is sometimes, which makes this statement true. Because sometimes that does happen, but we don't have facts that that's 100% always true. So sometimes would be accurate. Strategy number 4, recognize absolute. So absolutes have no room of being, you know, true or false. It is what it is. It means that it's facts. So you want to watch out for words, absolute words such as never, none, always, all, every, only, entirely. Those are absolutes. So I have an example. Let's say that the test question was, everyone should exercise daily. Everyone implies that that's facts. There's no wiggle room there. So this would actually be a false statement because we don't know everyone's situation. Everyone shouldn't. Maybe there's people that shouldn't exercise daily, and that's what makes the statement false. Open book tactics. When you have open book or open note exam, there's 3 things you want to look for. So preparation, organization, and examination. Preparation means, you know, going to class and keeping up with the readings, preparing yourself way in advance before the exam. And then also, before your exam, preparing the notes that you're actually going to take in with you or the book, and rephrasing things so that they're concise and they're easy to look at, easy to find. Organization means you want to make sure you're familiar with the layout of your notes that you're taking with you so that you don't waste time scrambling through. And then also, if you take your book, you want to make sure it's user-friendly. So putting in any sticky notes so that it's easy to find things. Examination. This suggests that you shouldn't be afraid to use quotes if you need it to support your answers in your exam. But also you want to make sure that you examine the test questions so that you can pinpoint, okay, these are the questions that I know where to find right now, so that you can tackle those first and then we'll go back to the ones that are going to take you a longer time. Essay exams. Essay exams are common among history, English, and W courses. There's two types. There's short essay questions and then long essay questions. Short essay questions are usually aimed at your ability to remember and present accurate explanations supported by facts. And long essay questions are directed at demonstrating your ability to make valid generalizations and support them with evidence or apply principles to a series of events. Strategy number 1 for essay exam. Try to condense and organize your exam materials into major groups or similar concepts. Also, ensure that you have working knowledge of the course vocabulary. If you go in knowing the vocabulary, you can make strong arguments when you do your essay exam. Strategy number 2, budget your time to the value of each question and total number of questions. Let's say you have one long essay exam and 2 short written questions. Then you want to make sure you allot your time necessary to complete all those 3 sections. But also, you want to make sure you allow time for proofreading your work, if possible. Another strategy is, before writing, make a rough outline of ideas and facts that you want to include. Once you structure this, it might be easier to make your paper flow. All right, we're going to quickly go over learning styles. And the reason why I want to touch bases on this is because your brain is the most important, one of the most important parts of your body, where all of the information is processed through. You learn through there, you make decisions through there. So you really want to make sure that the way you're studying and the way you're taking in information aligns with the way you're wired to. Your brain is already wired to do that, so that you're studying smarter and not harder. So the VARC is an assessment that we use so that you know what is your predominant learning style. Sometimes people have more than one learning style, but it's usually one that is, your dominant. So the 4 learning styles are auditory learning, kinesthetic learning, reading, writing learners, and visual learners. So I really encourage you to maybe pause this video and look at the link below and go take the VARC exam and then find out what is your learning style so that you can start doing study strategies that really align with that learning style. If you want more information, I encourage you to also meet with one of us at SupportNet. Meeting with your academic coach, we can go over, what that exactly means for you, what should you be doing to optimize your learning in the classroom based on your learning style, and also outside the classroom. We're going to go over some study strategies. Some might be already very familiar to you. All right, so the first one is flashcards. Flashcards can be used individually or for group purposes. So you can be very specific with them, or you can be lengthy on your flashcards. You can also color coordinate by chapter or by concept as well. Like I said, you can use this to test yourself, or you can use this as a group to test each other. Mental retrieval. Mental retrieval is the reaccessing of events of information from the past. So an example of how you can use mental retrieval, which is a very effective tool, is by taking out a piece of paper before you even start your study session. Let's say you're going to study on chapter 1. Take out that piece of paper, and you're really going to pull out every memory, every information that you have that you can recall onto that piece of paper for chapter 1. Once you have that, that's that constant retrieval of memory and information will help reinforce that memory, but also it helps you gauge any knowledge gaps in chapter 1 that you really need to go back and focus on. Mnemonic devices. This is a device that aids information retention. So an example would be my image to the right, Roy G. Biv. Roy G. Biv is easier to remember than red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. So this is a way for that people can remember the colors in the rainbow. Another popular mnemonic is PEMDAS. And PEMDAS is used to remember the order of operations. Method of loci. The method of loci is a memory enhancement strategy which uses visualizations of familiar spatial environments in order to enhance the recall of information. So when you're remembering a list, for example, you associate an outrageous picture to a well-known route. I'm going to give you an example. If my route to school every day is the first exit would be Bullard off the highway, Bullard would be my number one exit, and let's say the second street I take is like Chestnut, then I would associate Bullard, which is the first exit on my route, to the first thing on my list. Let's say I was trying to remember my grocery list, and number one thing on there was milk. I would picture on Bullard a big bull, because that's what it sounds like, very big bull with maybe like a hoop piercing, drinking a big glass of milk, stopping traffic on Bullard. That outrageous picture will help me connect. And now the second thing on my list, I would associate and create an image on Chestnut Street, because that's the second street on my route. All right, moving on is graphic organizing. And I have an example here of graphic organizing. Really, this one is used a lot by visual learners, and it helps you kind of use categories and subcategories to remember information. Another one is self-testing. Self-testing is encouraged for every type of learner. Really, you want to create your own test questions based on the material you're learning, and then actually take that test and go back and check your answers, and then maybe redo it all over again and create new questions for yourself. And group study. Group study is a form of studying where you can share information with each other, test each other's knowledge, and you'll have a chance to maybe also kind of lecture out loud. And recording and listening. This might be a good strategy for auditory learners. To record yourself going over some of the information on your exam, and then you're going to go back and listen to your recordings in times where either maybe you're just relaxing in your bed, or maybe you're driving to school if you commute from far. Using your resources. There are some resources that will help you create your exam game plan, or that will make your studying a little bit easier. Number one, SupportNet. If you really want more information on study strategies, or maybe creating goals or managing your time before an exam, we can sit down with you or have a Zoom session where we can be of support. Number two, reach out to your classmates. This is a good tool this is a good way to start studying, because your classmates are the ones there with you in class. They're the ones that are taking the same material at the same speed. So really, when you have more than one person coming together for the same exam, there's a higher chance of all of you to leverage off each other's strengths and do well on the exam. Discover eHub. This is a technology service where they can help you obtain the necessary technology tools needed, or devices needed to prepare for your exam or to keep updated on the material. So, for example, getting a hotspot for the rest of the semester for your Wi-Fi, or any other technology device like an iPad, for example. And we have the Learning Center, which has tutoring and supplemental instruction. These are great resources for you to get a clarity on the information that you need, or maybe some examples or practice exams or practice questions to help you, ace your test and be prepared for it. Number 6, reach out to professors. If you want some clarity or rephrasing of content, then it would be a good idea to email your instructor or set up an appointment to do office hours so that you can get clarity from the person actually creating the exam. All right, we've talked about some strategies, we've talked about preparing for your exam, and now we're going to get to the creating a plan. So how do you do this? First of all, you want to set SMART goals for yourself. SMART goals are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. If you set a goal like I don't want to procrastinate this time, and I want to start studying ahead of time. They're very vague goals. So in order to make them SMART goals, you can say something like, I want to have completed and memorized items 1 through 10 on my study guide by Friday. That was very specific, something you can measure. It's achievable, it's a realistic goal, and also timely because you set a deadline for yourself. Another point on here is start studying 5 to 10 days in advance. This means that you want to use the chunking method. Chunking method is you taking small portions of the content on your exam and spreading it out days in advance instead of cramming all in one night. And this will increase the chances of retaining the information for long term. Really, to chunk your time, we encourage you to actually create a weekly schedule. So let's say your exam is, it's going to be in 2 weeks, but the first week, you're planning for that first week study, which is 1 through 10, items 1 through 10 on your study guide. So I'm going to use a whiteboard to kind of give you an idea of how you can start planning. All right, on Monday you want to do, and you're going to chunk the 10 items on your list. So you want to do something like memorize 1 through 2 on Monday, 4 Tuesday, 5 through 6, 7 through 8, and then 9 through 10. And then you're going to go ahead and think about how your schedule looks and say, okay, when am I going to do this? When am I going to sit down and study? So let's say Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, you have more time in the afternoon. Let's say you set 7 through 9 or 7 through 10. Tuesday, Thursdays, you have more time in the morning. Seven to 9, 10 to 12. And that's kind of how you would start your plan, making sure that first it's on paper, and then that way you're more accountable to follow through. And the last point on this is setting your boundaries. So in order to really commit to this plan that you've created for yourself, you want to put away any distractions. If for those 2 hours of studying, you get very distracted by your phone, put it to the side. Or if you want to take breaks in between, put a timer on your phone, put your phone all the way across the room, and then when the timer goes off, then give yourself 5 or 10 minutes, and then go back and do the same thing over again. I have created an example of what a schedule might look like when you input all of maybe the duties that you have in a week. So you see really this person works Monday through Friday, they have the class times or maybe the times they zoom into class, and then they have, some workout times. And then really, this is the time where you can get very specific where when you want to study and what exam you're going to study for. So let's say you have that exam, in 2 weeks. Well, you can maybe start labeling the times you're going to study by putting which exam. So let's say study for Social 1. And this is the link where you can actually get a link toolkit for this weekly activity study schedule. I'm also going to show you how to access it. So let's say we go to Google, Fortnite, Fresno State. You can find that toolkit on the left side here, or all the way down to Success Toolkits. And really we have them categorized by all of these categories. And that one would be under time management. We have many tools for you to download or print for yourself. Feel free to use at any time. We have the weekly schedule #1. If you want to visualize how your month's going to look, we also encourage you to do this, and you can look at the bigger picture of all of the deadlines you have coming up. All right, now I just want to briefly go over some tips on how to maybe reduce some test anxiety. First of all, be prepared, make sure you're attending class and that you start studying ahead of time. Number 2, breathe, relax, and rest. Practice some breathing exercises to reduce anxiety, and also get a good night rest before an exam. Have a support system. Having a person to vent to can be really helpful. Number 4, positive thinking. This means you wanted to stay optimistic about this exam, but also to not compare yourself to others. Number 5, feel confident. Feel confident because you know all the studying you put into this, so that means you're going in with your A game. Number 6, don't procrastinate. So avoid that at all costs. During exam, some things that might help you calm the nerves down are, for example, underlining, highlighting key terms, take some control with your exam. If you want to take your time reading your questions and highlight things or rephrase them, go ahead and do that. Also, draw or write everything that you remember first. So the first thing you do, let's say you don't want to blink out because you're so nervous, write down everything you remember on the side. Number 3, skip difficult questions. Don't panic, just move on, and then later come back and spend more time on those questions that you're having a difficult time with. Number 4, look for clues in other questions. Sometimes as you move through your exam, you'll find a clue that will spark a memory that can help you answer the questions that you left to the side. And last one, use process of elimination to help calm that anxiety. Thank you so much for joining in today. Please don't forget to go to the survey. It helps us get some feedback to better serve all of you, but also this will count as your attendance to this workshop. Have a great day.